Hey, what's up, all you huntsmen and huntswomen out there? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, and I'm coming at you with Rwby, Volume 7, Episode 3, Ace Operatives. And that title should tell you that this episode is all about the Ace Operatives and how they work, and specifically, how fantastically they work. Like, these guys, pretty impressive, all things considered. Like this episode does an amazing job of just warming you up to the Ace Operatives instantly. Like, get this: Clover, Vine, Elm, Marrow, Harriet. I'm terrible with names, and I remembered all of their names. All of their names. I'm so terrible with names for new characters, but I managed to memorize all of their names and know who all of them are. Like that's how good of an impression this episode gave to me for these new characters and how well they work. But enough filleting this team, let's jump into the review as we pick up maybe a few days after they originally arrived. I was assuming like a week or so. We see a briefing where Clover is going over the plan of attack. Basically, that they're going to be infiltrating an abandoned dust mine that was overrun with Grim, specifically one Grim that has the ability to possess objects and just completely take it over. Their plan is to infiltrate, clear out the Grim, and give this place over to Atlas as a launch platinum platform for the new satellite. Naturally, we have Clover going over things with Crow because he's the senior huntsman, as well as Rwby and Jean because they're the leaders of their respective teams. Very good stuff, very good planning. Let's jump into the action as we see everyone get their new equipment as well as outfits. It's very My Hero Academia with the cases with their equipment in it and all that good stuff, but naturally it doesn't have the numbering and all that. But it is pretty cool to actually see them get their stuff because we find out that it was Pietro, Penny's father, who had modified all their equipment and maybe gave them the new outfits. I'm not sure where the outfits came into play, but the reveal for Team Ruby's new outfits outside of the opening is pretty cool, pretty nice, looking pretty damn good. Um, I'm surprised that Weiss had enough hair to do her hair up like that. It feels like suddenly she has more hair, whereas Blake managed to trim down her hair, but looking pretty good. This is a nice close up of everyone. We see that Team Rwby has teamed up with Marrow and Harriet, the dog and the rabbit, so that's an interesting pairing there. Jean's team, which I know they have a more abbreviated version of their team name, Jenner, Jenner, Janer, Jenner. Like it's JNR, so I'm like, I'm just gonna call him John's team because I can't figure out the anagram on this one and how it's shortened without Juniper. It works so well without the P. It's incomplete. But honestly, in action, while I wasn't originally digging John's haircut, I'm like, you know what? Depending on the angle, it looks pretty damn good. And I'm like, now I'm actually starting to come around to the new style and all that good stuff. Like, he's really feeling like a knight as things go along. So I'm really kind of digging things. And they're teamed up with Elm and Vine, who feel were a little shaky at first about whether or not they'd be able to survive this, but the daring leap from the jump jets without parachutes kind of managed to get Elm on board with these kids. And we get to see that Crow is teamed up with Clover. So, interesting pairings all around. Everybody gets to see what everybody else can do. We see that everyone got new I'm completely blanking on what these things are called. But new communication devices, so new toys to play around with, keep everybody in, check. Not to mention it works for a good game readout too. So if we ever get another Ruby game, honestly, this is the layout. There you go. Whenever you come into the layout menu, it works perfectly. We also have a very kind of cute, kind of cringy moment with Blake and Yang, where she comments on Blake's shortened hair, and it's cute, but it's just like, a little puppy love. I'll feel better when they're actually dating. Just let them date. Let them date, team. But we also have Team Ruby discuss the fact that they weren't very forthcoming with Ironwood. They hid a bunch of things. Yang specifically feels a little uneasy about all that, but everybody else kind of makes the point that when they arrived, things were not that great. They questioned a lot of things here going on here. So, once they feel a little bit more comfortable, then they'll come out and say things. However, when they question Ruby about how Oscar felt about the whole situation as well as being left behind, we find out that the lamp was left with Oscar to keep it safe in Atlas, but there's also kind of the fact that Oscar feels a little bit uneasy about not telling Ironwood the whole story. As he points out, it seems like something that Ozpin would do. So we're actually starting to see a little bit of development in terms of that whole, you know, things change when you're a leader. It's easy to say that you wouldn't lie and, withhold information or mislead people when you're not the leader. But once you're a leader, you start making some choices that, seem a little backstabby in certain regards, seem a little bit like things that you said you'd never do if you were in that position. So it raises some interesting questions that I'll be interested to see where all of this goes as I continue on through this series on this volume. We also get a bit of a moment between Crow as well as Clover, with Crow talking about the fact that he hasn't really been in a team in a good long while. We know that's because of his semblance and how he feels that, well, it does bring misfortune, but, a lot of angst going on with Crow. Also, in terms of interesting relationships, for some reason, Red is acting kind of distant to Nora, which I'm wondering what's going on there. Is it something to do with his background? What? Because they seem like they were on pretty damn good terms up until this point. So I'm wondering, did I miss something? Am I forgetting something? If you know anything, tell me in the comment section below. Maybe I missed something in the last volume or I'm not remembering something. But Ruby's grouping ends up at a dead end where there seems to have been a cave in. We get a bit of a moment because this was one of the Schnee dust mines where Faunus were forced into, back-breaking labor and all that. So it's a nice little bit of character moment. Like, of course, coming to Atlas as well as Mantle and all that was going to be a big character moment for both Weiss as well as Blake. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of demons they have to confront going forward. But there is enough space for one of the younger kids as well, like Blake, to fit through, but with Blake's eyes that are able to actually see in the dark. She's the perfect candidate to scout ahead a bit. And while she does note that there's no dust blocking the way so that he can just smash on through, she ends up coming in contact with the target, ghost like Grim. And so Harriet blasts through so everyone can get in on the action, only for the one Grim to run off and them to be confronted by all these centipede like Grim as well. And we get to see Harriet and Marrow's semblance, with Marrow having an ability where he, has a freeze command where he says stay, and you know, whatever his target is will kind of freeze in place. And Harriet just has super speed, which is pretty cool, very Flash like, electrical power just discharging off of her. But we know that that's ultimately just the effect of her semblance, the form that her semblance takes, and it's pretty cool. We also get to see Elm and Vine show off their abilities, with Vine's semblance being Mr. Fantastic stretchy arms, basically, which he uses to good effect. I'm a big fan of One Piece as well as the Fantastic Four, so you can never go wrong with a guy with stretchy arms. Stretch Armstrong. Well, Elms is a little bit more kind of rudimentary, as in she roots herself in place. She is a force. She cannot be knocked down. So it's just like, you know what? That could actually come in pretty handy, just locking yourself in place. So not bad. Very interesting. But Crow as well as Clover end up coming upon the Grim, who has infused himself into some crystal and surrounding mixture, whatever. He's able to possess rock and crystal and all that and form a more powerful body. Fortunately, he ends up escaping because of a bit of a collapse within the tunnels, and Crow feels this is the result of his semblance, which is bad luck. Clover feels that, maybe not, because his semblance is good luck. So it's just like, do they negate each other? Does it balance out? Maybe they should stick a little bit closer together. I know there's a little bit of a shipping going on here, so it's just like, bring out your gays, get it on. But Ruby's team ends up meeting up with John's team, and the Grim ends up just crashing in on the party, having fused with all this dust. So they have to be very careful and surgical. We get to see the Ace Operatives in action, like, just going over this whole moment where they pick apart this Grim. It's very fantastic, with, Elm and Vine holding it in place, and Harriet and Marrow just taking it apart in ways that, they can get the dust out, safely, get it caught, keep it from exploding and going off, because it's, raw and very volatile. And Clover manages to take out the Grim himself with his fishing hook, which I'm just like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool weapon. Speaking of which, it's just like Harriet has the power fist. Marrow has a machine gun, it almost seems like, that can convert into a type of boomerang, but we didn't really see too much of Elm and Vine using their weaponry. So, and we know that Elm has this massive kind of hammer like object, so it'll be interesting to see that in actual combat. But Clover's fishing hook, like, man, that I should know, because of Hunter x Hunter. It's just like, never doubt a fishing rod. Never doubt a fishing rod. So they managed to pick apart the beast one by one, catching almost all the dust, with Ruby coming in at the last moment to catch the last bit of dust. And we have a little bit of an interesting aside between Ruby and Harriet, whereas Ruby thought that her semblance was very similar to Harriet's, super speed. Harriet's not so sure. She's seen speed semblances before, and there's something unique about Ruby's ability, which, raises the question, what is Ruby's ability? It was always we always did kind of see it as more of a super speed ability, but, is that all? Is that, like, what more to it could there be? So that raises a lot of questions. I'm interested to find out the answer. But everybody manages to accomplish their mission, they celebrate. Meanwhile, as our episode ends, we see Forrest get released by the police, only for him to run into some real trouble, as Tyrion is still stalking the streets of Mantle. Ooh, it really. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, Tyrion's clothing in this scene it seems very reminiscent of his older clothing. Like, kind of made me wonder, did, did he steal this coat from somebody? Because I know that previously he had a coat. Was that just something that came up? Did he change up his coat going somewhere? Did he steal it from Forrest? Hmm, really does make me wonder. Or is it just something that we haven't seen before? Maybe he was wearing it before. I can't remember. Hmm, just have to wait and see, because I don't think it's the same coat that Forrest is wearing. It was a little bit more elaborate. Maybe I'm overthinking the whole situation. But, Forrest, cut down in his prime, but a very great episode. The setting in the mine wasn't the most thrilling because everybody kind of had it handled after a few seasons of our main cast kind of being the underdog in a lot of situations. It was good to just see them just have an easy win for the most part and really see what the Ace Operatives could do. I mean, the central place where they took on the boss battle was actually well laid out, well done. You never really think about it, but this was a very well executed scene because they planned out where everyone was. There was you have to do a great deal of planning with this many characters all in one scene. So that's something that you don't see too often sometimes. It's very well done. Like, the quality of this series really does speak volumes because other 3D animated series I've seen don't go this far, don't have this level of detail and just professionalism. Like, time and time again, I'm very shocked with just how well done this series is. Like, Rooster Teeth is no joke when it comes to this series. And in terms of the Ace Operatives and their abilities, I especially like Marrow's ability. It's just like doggo tail. It's just like the stay command and all that. It's just like his weapon's pretty cool. Not the best, it's just like it's all right. It's not my personal favorite. Honestly, a few of the Ace Operatives' weaponry feels a little bit on the generic side, but still keeping in that same vein of it's also a gun. Although I don't think we've seen Clover's weapon turn into a gun yet. Also, Harriet, her ability seems very generic. It's just like, she gets the power fists, very similar to Yang's, but it really makes me wonder. It's just like, where's the gun feature on that? How does that function as it's also a gun? Because that's always the fun little game. It's just like, how is this weapon also a gun? But great scene with the Ace Operatives, everything going on with, you know, John's team was very fun and interesting. You can see plot developing, if nothing else. So I'm wondering how the Ace Operatives will impact our group of characters going forward. I can't wait to see. But until next time, if you like this video, leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike. Subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you never miss out on another Rwby episode review. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye bye.